We're here today to tell you about the tragically beautiful story of the life of Gloria Estefan, the famous singer, songwriter, actress, and businesswoman. Gloria Estefan was born on September 1st in 1957 in Havana, Cuba, to her two loving parents, Jose Manuel and Gloria Fajardo. Manuel was a bodyguard to Cuban leader Fulgencio Batista, and her mom worked as a school teacher. As a communist dictator, Fidel Castro rose to power. The country of Cuba was in a terrible state. Manuel's opposing views from the new dictator Castro landed him in jail for 3 long months. In the beginning, Gloria's mom tried her best to hide her father's imprisonment from her by telling her that her father was working on the farm, but Gloria knew that he was always in jail. While her father was in prison, it was a very stressful time for her mom. She tried to hide the tears and anguish from her daughter, but Gloria was well aware of the terrible situation her family was facing. Gloria says, I remember rosaries and my mom dragging me to prayer groups because my dad was a political prisoner in Cuba fighting Castro at the Bay of Pigs. After Manuel was released from jail, they fled to Miami, Florida. Shortly after they arrived in the U.S., Gloria's father joined the U.S. military to fight in the Vietnam War. He then moved to Houston, Texas, after the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, and Gloria stayed in Florida with her mom and her grandma. Upon leaving Cuba, they ripped all of her mother's diplomas and papers away from her at the airport, saying, You're not even going to take your education with you. Knowing that education was very important, she only wanted to send Gloria to the best schools. Her mother went back to school to get accredited so that she could afford to send her to the best private schools in Florida. Since Gloria was Catholic, she attended St. Michael Archangel School and Our Lady of Lourdes Academy in Miami. She then went to University of Miami and graduated with a BA in psychology and a minor in French in 1979. When her father returned home from Vietnam, he was very sick after being exposed to Agent Orange in the herbicidal warfare. He developed multiple sclerosis, which caused him to lose his ability to speak as well as his ability to make decisions. Gloria says, he was a very big guy, 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds, and he'd start trying to walk to the bathroom and then he'd fall. So I had to find a way to be able to pick him up off the floor. It was a difficult thing to handle, but it made me stronger, and music was my escape. She talks about how she would play for her dad, and when she wasn't playing for him, she would lock herself in her room, sing for hours, and let out all of her emotions through her music. This helped her be stronger for her mom since it was such a tough time for her family. In 1980, Jose Manuel passed away when he was just 47 years old.
Emilio Estefan was a sales manager for the rum dealer Bacardi while also leading a band known as the Miami Latin Boys. It was love at first voice for Emilio and Gloria, even if they didn't know it at the time. When Emilio first heard Gloria sing at a wedding that his band, the Miami Latin Boys, was entertaining, he immediately asked Gloria to come try singing with them. And then, just a few weeks later, Emilio asked Gloria to be the lead singer of the band, in which she politely yet eagerly accepted. Having education be a top priority in Gloria's life, she could only find time on the weekends to sing with the band while still attending the University of Miami. A year and a half after Gloria joined the group, they had renamed the band to Miami Sound Machine and recorded its first album for a local label. This whirlwind of a career took Gloria by surprise, but she knew she was ready. After several months of being professional band members, the relationship Gloria and Emilio had became very personal, and in September 1978, Gloria and Emilio were married. And just 2 short years after their wedding, their son Naive was born. And at this time, Emilio quit working for Bacardi in order to focus all of his time on the band and his family. They played a fusion of American popular music, including rock and roll, funk, and disco, but always with Cuban rhythms at its heart. Gloria listened to Cuban music, the music of her grandmother. At school, she would sing Carole King, James Taylor, and Elton John. These were the people that were influencing her, so living in Miami, it was very easy for her to blend pop music with Cuban culture. Later on, the band was then signed by CBS Records, and for the next 5 years, they embarked on tours across Latin America, selling out venues and promoting their albums. During this tour, Gloria had an interesting idea of doing her hit song, Conga, in English. She went to Emilio with this idea, and Emilio was delighted, since he was tired of the limitations of the Spanish market and the never-ending tours of concert venues and nightclubs. It was not always easy for the Miami Sound Machine, since many record executives called them too Cuban for American and too American for Cuban. But this didn't bother Gloria, because that's who they were and what they stood for. In 1985, Conga landed in Billboard's Dance, R&B, and Hot 100 charts, all at the same time. It was a monster hit and launched Gloria Estefan into international stardom, reaching as far away as Japan, where the song won the Grand Prix in the Tokyo Music Festival.
The music getting stronger, don't you fight it till you try to do that conga beat.
This was a fusion that would change Latin pop for decades to come. It accomplished everything that the Latinos were striving for, the American sound, but had the Latino culture underneath it. Soon, the Miami Sound Machine was selling albums in the millions. While traveling on tour with her group Miami Sound Machine, something tragic happened on March 20th, 1990. The band's bus was hit by a tractor trailer on snowy Interstate 380 near the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, leaving Gloria plus 5 other members on the bus in urgent need of care. They were quickly taken to Community Medical Center, including Gloria and her husband. Emilia received just minor head and hand injuries, compared to Gloria, who suffered from a broken vertebrae in her back. The couple's 9-year-old son, Naib, suffered from a fractured shoulder and neck injury due to the crash. Although the doctors confirmed that Estefan was not paralyzed, she would have to undergo a 4-hour operation several days later, where surgeons would realign Estefan's spine by implanting steel rods to support the fracture. In order for Estefan to one day be able to walk and perform again, a long road of recovery was necessary to completely heal. Estefan retired to her home with her family on Star Island near Miami to undergo this recovery, which required 7 hours of daily rehab for 9 consistent months. Estefan considers the 1990 crash her crucible. She goes on to say, "Maybe this is the only reason I became famous, because right now everyone is watching," she recalls thinking at the time. "Maybe I need to be an example." It became my reason to get back on stage. With Estefan's intense determination and extensive physical therapy, she was able to make a miraculous comeback thanks to her support of her family and fans. She marked her first return on television just less than 1 year later, in January of 1991, during the American Music Awards, where she appeared in a performance. And in the beginning of March, she launched a year-long tour to promote her comeback album, Into the Light. Over the next 4 years, Gloria's career boomed as she released 4 albums and embarked on a world tour. The album styles changed from Latin to pop culture, which allowed her to make more of an impact on the music world. The album Destiny was released in 1996, opened up an opportunity for Gloria to begin a high-tech world tour called Evolution. During each show of the tour, Gloria swung from a suspended globe that was moving above the audience. This tour was placed by the North American leg as the 24th highest-grossing tour of 1996, with over $14 million in receipts. Gloria went on to become a major icon in the music industry and is still to this day looked up upon by many peers. She expanded her family with another child by miraculously welcoming her daughter Emily in 1994, after the doctors told Estefan she would never be able to have another child after the 1990 bus crash. Estefan is still helping producers and songwriters in the music industry and continues to get recognition for all of her work.